For anybody to think the betting favorites to get him are the Raiders. Why? Because his agent said that? Why? Because Aaron Rodgers came out on the Pat McAfee show and said it seems like it's probably going to be the Raiders because they're the most interested. That doesn't mean anything. When a team is quiet, aka the New York Jets, and the players are speaking for the GM, trying to pitch Aaron Rodgers to come and play for them, the Sauce Gardners of the world, the Garrett Wilsons of the world, the Breece Halls of the world, defensive linemen like Quinn Williams and C.J. Mosley. Everybody is speaking out trying to get Aaron Rodgers to come and play in New York. Does that mean that Aaron Rodgers is flat out decided he's going to play for the Raiders? Why? Because his ex-wide receiver who decided to part ways and ditch him in Green Bay to go and play with his best friend in Derek Carr, who's no longer with him. He's down in Louisiana talking to the Saints. All of a sudden, he's just going to go and play for the Raiders? Why? Because he owns a house in Vegas? What are they, nuts? I don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to decide to do. He could retire. Maybe he wants to be the host of Jeopardy. Maybe he wants to be a director. What I do know is the Raiders are not the only team interested in Aaron Rodgers. The Jets are definitely going to be out there looking for a veteran quarterback to play in front of Zach Wilson. I don't care about Mike White going to the LA Rams. There's stories coming out that's where he's going. Joe Flacco probably retiring in the offseason. Who cares? No offense to Joe or Zach Wilson sitting the bench. But for the Raiders and whoever's writing these stories, that's a foregone conclusion that's where he's going is ridiculous. As a matter of fact, it's also ridiculous that we're hearing that Derek Carr is practically sealed and delivered to the Saints, who, by the way, is over the salary cap by $57 million. There is no way they can sign this guy unless they trade pieces, which they can't do that until the offseason and after a week after the Super Bowl. So, yes, it might be an agreement with the Raiders and the Saints that they're going to trade for Derek Carr, but he has the no-trade clause. He could say, no, I don't want to go there. I believe Derek Carr is going to do everything he can to screw the Raiders. I don't think he wants to be traded. I think he wants to go on his own recognizance. And after what the Raiders did to him and sitting him out the last two games, why not? He holds everything because he has the no-trade clause. I know DraftKings have the Raiders betting favorites and the Jets third. He's not going back to the Green Bay Packers. And I know what he said at Pebble Beach, what he's hearing, it's the Raiders. I don't know if that's all true. Devontae Adams saying that he's going to move on the same block as him. He owns a house. Why would he move on the same block as him? That's just stupidity. There's a deadline to make this move for Rodgers just as much as there's a deadline to make the move for Derek Carr. I think these guys are connected because whatever happens to Rodgers, Carr will probably be the next one out. I think Rodgers will go first, and then you're going to see Carr be traded, free agency, whatever.
If Rodgers ends up going first, which would be very interesting, the Raiders would probably have to trade a lot more away in order to do it, which really puts them in a tough predicament with Derek Carr, because then you're not going to be able to trade him as easily either, because the Raiders...
They're not going to trade him. They're going to release him.
Yeah, it seems that way at this point, because the Raiders have to trade him 4 days after the Super Bowl, which it's going to be very hard for them to do. If they already get Aaron Rodgers, you're essentially saying you have to go anyway. That's going to drop the trade value tremendous, and it's also going to make it desperate on both ends to make it work, too. So the Raiders really have to play their cards right here to make sure that they can find a good trade partner with Derek Carr in the perfect time. Now, you mentioned the Saints. It's going to be very hard for the Saints because they're going to have to trade multiple good players on that team in order to do it.
The cap is going up.
Right. Unless the Raiders take one or two of those players back in the deal and they don't get any draft picks, that would be the only way to do it. Now, are you going to do that without knowing that you're going to get Aaron Rodgers, though? Let's take DeMario Davis, for example, and Cam Jordan, because those are two big contracts on the Saints defense, which the Raiders definitely could use. They need a lot of help on their defense. Are the Raiders going to do that without knowing who your quarterback's going to be? Just because you trade for those players on the Saints does not mean you're also going to get Aaron Rodgers, too. What if the Jets all of a sudden, after the Saints trade for Derek Carr, swoop in and get Aaron Rodgers, then the Raiders are left with nothing? So they're really just in a tough predicament. It's going to be tough for the Saints to be able to pull that kind of thing off. Now, that being said, the Raiders are in Las Vegas. It's a flashy move for them to try to go after Aaron Rodgers to make a sense. I could see them still overspending for Aaron Rodgers and doing it. Now, the Packers will stick you 2 first-round picks. You're not going to get that from the Jets. Who knows? Maybe the Raiders, Dave Ziegler is dumb enough to do that. As far as the Jets, Joe Douglas is going to get Aaron Rodgers at his value. I don't think they're going to overspend for him. If they end up doing it, it'll probably be because of ownership at that point. Woody Johnson sticking his nose in this kind of deal and trying to get the flashy quarterback. But Joe Douglas is not going to do anything reckless where he's going to say, all right, we're going to go trade for Aaron Rodgers. Yes, the Jets are seeming like they're a quarterback away, but they still definitely have other factors they have to factor into.
Michael Strahan says that Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets would be the missing piece and that he will thrive in New York. And Michael Strahan knows all about thriving as he was a superstar with the New York Giants and winning a Super Bowl with them.